former Oxford police officer Matthew Kinne walked into court in stripes and shackles, staying silent when we asked him questions. Kinne is accused of killing 32-year-old mother of four Dominique Clayton back in May. Her family claims the two were in a relationship, that Kinne shot Clayton in her home and one of her children found her.
Imagine being 8 years old. It's Sunday afternoon. You're looking for your mom to ask about dinner or maybe for help with homework. You push open her bedroom door expecting to see her resting. Instead, you find her motionless in bed, blood soaking into the pillow beneath her head. This was the horrifying reality for Dominique Clayton's young son in May 2019. In an instant, his childhood shattered as he discovered his mother had been shot in the back of her head while she slept. The person responsible wasn't a stranger who broke in during the night. The killer was someone sworn to protect the community, someone who carried a badge, drove a patrol car, and took an oath to serve and protect. But why would a law enforcement officer commit such an act? And how many secrets can remain hidden when the person keeping them holds the power of the law in their hands? Welcome to Crazy Dark Files, where we shed light on the darkest true crime stories to help raise awareness and promote safety. By liking this video, sharing and subscribing to this channel, you're helping raise awareness, spread caution, and maybe even save someone else from the same fate. Don't just scroll past, be the reason someone stays safe. Has there ever been a case involving police misconduct in your community? Drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Your experiences and perspectives add valuable context to these discussions. Today we're examining how Matthew Kinne, a married police officer, murdered his girlfriend Dominique Clayton after she threatened to expose their affair.
The loss has forced the Clayton family to come together even more. Their attorney also says two other Oxford police officers were forced to resign. City officials say due to Mississippi law, they cannot comment on the resignations.
He gonna have to pay for what he did. And you know, we just want justice for it. That's all we want.
Dominique Clayton was 32 years old when her life was cut short. A vibrant woman whose warmth and dedication to her children defined her in the close-knit community of Oxford, Mississippi. She wasn't just existing in Oxford. She was deeply woven into its fabric through her children, her extended family, and her network of friends. As a mother of four children, Dominique's life revolved around school activities, birthday parties, and creating a stable home. Her youngest was just 8 years old when tragedy struck. The same child who would make the devastating discovery that Sunday afternoon. Her other children, who looked to her for guidance, support, and love, suddenly found themselves motherless in a world that made little sense. Those who knew Dominique spoke of her determination. Raising four children isn't easy under any circumstances, but she approached the challenge with dedication and resilience. She worked hard to provide for her family, making sacrifices that many parents understand all too well. Her home on Suncrest Drive in East Oxford was modest, but filled with the chaos and love that comes with a house full of children. What made Dominique's story particularly compelling to those who knew her was her optimism. Despite financial struggles that occasionally required help with rent and other expenses, she maintained hope for a better future. She dreamed of stability and opportunities for her children that perhaps she hadn't had herself. Her relationship with Matthew Kinne began around August 2018, according to court records. What started as a casual connection evolved into something more serious, though necessarily secret given Kinne's marriage. Friends later revealed they had concerns about the relationship, particularly given the power imbalance between a police officer and a civilian, but Dominique seemed to believe the relationship offered promise. The financial dynamics between them were complicated. Court statements revealed that Kinne had been financially supporting Dominique, helping with her rent and even purchasing a car for her when she couldn't qualify as a co-signer on a loan. These entanglements created a dependency that would later factor into the escalating tensions between them. In the Oxford community, Dominique was known primarily through her children and family connections. Her cousin Reggie, who would later speak for the family during court proceedings, was particularly close to her. The extended Clayton family had deep roots in the area, and Dominique's murder would send shockwaves through multiple generations of relatives. What makes Dominique's story particularly heartbreaking is the ordinary nature of her life before it intersected with tragedy. She wasn't a public figure or someone who sought the spotlight. She was a mother trying to raise her children, a woman navigating complicated relationships, and a community member who trusted in the system of law enforcement that ultimately failed her. The morning of May 19, 2019, Dominique Clayton went to sleep in her bed, perhaps thinking about the week ahead, her children's schedules, work commitments, or her increasingly complicated relationship with Matthew Kinne. She couldn't have known that by entering that bedroom, she was walking into a trap set by someone who had decided her life was an obstacle to his peace of mind. In the aftermath of her death, the community rallied around her 4 children, who now faced growing up without their mother. Her legacy lives on through them, 4 young people who carry her memory and the weight of her absence every day. Matthew Paul Kinne, 38 at the time of the murder, represented authority in Oxford, Mississippi. As a uniformed officer with the Oxford Police Department, he embodied the trust the community placed in law enforcement. Behind the badge was a man whose personal life was far more complicated than his professional facade suggested. Kinne wasn't new to marriage when he began his affair with Dominique Clayton. Court records revealed he was on his 2nd marriage, with 2 teenage children from his first marriage and a 2-year-old child with his second wife. His family presented the picture of stability. A police officer, his wife and their young child, living what appeared to be the American dream. His colleagues at the Oxford Police Department knew a different side of Kinne. While no public records indicate disciplinary issues before the murder, his actions following Dominique's death revealed a calculating individual who understood police procedures well enough to attempt to manipulate the investigation. He knew about evidence collection, witness statements, and the importance of establishing alibis, knowledge he would use in his failed attempt to cover his tracks. The Oxford Police Department, serving a city of approximately 25,000 residents, operates as a tight-knit unit where officers typically know each other well. This closeness would later prove crucial when investigators had to face the difficult reality that one of their own had committed murder. The department's decision to quickly call in the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation showed an understanding of the conflict of interest and the need for transparency. Kinne's position gave him unique access and authority. He drove a marked patrol car, carried a department-issued Glock 9M pistol, and wore a uniform that granted him automatic trust from most citizens. These tools of his profession would become instruments in his crime. The patrol car providing transportation to and from the murder scene, the service weapon becoming the murder weapon. His professional life intersected with his personal failings in dangerous ways. The financial strain of supporting 2 households, his official family, and secretly helping Dominique with expenses created pressure that built over time. According to court statements, he had purchased a car for Dominique when she couldn't qualify for a loan, and was regularly helping with her rent payments. What's particularly telling about Kinne's character was his response when the relationship began to sour. Rather than accepting the consequences of his actions, a potential divorce, child support payments, and public embarrassment, he chose to eliminate the problem permanently. His attorney would later describe the murder as a crime of passion, claiming Kinne wanted his life back and couldn't get out of the relationship. Before May 2019, residents of Oxford who encountered Officer Kinne likely saw only the uniform, not the man wearing it. They couldn't see the mounting financial pressure, the secret relationship, or the growing desperation as Dominique allegedly threatened to expose their affair to his wife. They saw authority, not the abuse of power that was brewing beneath the surface. After his arrest, Kinne's second wife divorced him and left the area with their young child. His professional reputation was destroyed, replaced by national headlines about a police officer who murdered his girlfriend. The trust he had been granted through his position was revealed to be tragically misplaced. Matthew Kinne's story serves as a stark reminder that badges and uniforms don't transform humans into heroes. Behind the symbols of authority was a man making increasingly desperate choices, culminating in a decision that would destroy multiple lives, including his own. The paths of Matthew Kinne and Dominique Clayton first crossed around August 2018. Oxford, Mississippi, with its population of roughly 25,000, is small enough that a police officer and a local resident might encounter each other in various settings, perhaps during a routine call, at a community event, or through mutual acquaintances. Their initial attraction quickly evolved into something more complicated. For Kinne, the relationship offered excitement outside his marriage, a secret life separate from his role as husband, father, and police officer. For Dominique, the relationship with a man in uniform might have represented stability, protection, or even status in a small town where police officers are well-known community figures. The affair began in secrecy, as court documents would later confirm. They met clandestinely for sexual encounters, carefully avoiding detection by Kinne's wife and colleagues. In a town the size of Oxford, maintaining such secrets required constant vigilance. Every public interaction risked exposure, every text message or phone call needed explanation, and every unexplained absence from home raised question. As their relationship deepened over the fall and winter of 2018, the practical complications of their arrangement became increasingly apparent. According to statements made during court proceedings, Kinne began financially supporting Dominique. This wasn't simply buying gifts or picking up dinner tabs. He was helping with significant expenses that shaped both their lives. The financial entanglements began with smaller contributions but escalated significantly when Dominique needed a car. She attempted to co-sign a loan with Kinne, but this presented obvious risks of exposure. Instead, Kinne purchased the vehicle outright, adding a substantial financial burden to his already stretched resources. Supporting two households, his official family and secretly helping Dominique, created mounting pressure on his police officer's salary. By early 2019, approximately 6 months into their relationship, the financial arrangements had expanded to include help with Dominique's rent payments. Court records indicate these financial obligations were becoming increasingly difficult for Kinne to manage. Each payment represented not just money leaving his account, but also another thread connecting him to a relationship that existed outside the boundaries of his marriage. The dynamics between them shifted as these financial dependencies grew. What may have started as a mutual attraction evolved into a relationship where power and dependency played increasingly significant roles. Dominique, as a single mother of 4, benefited from the financial support. Kinne, as the provider of that support, held certain leverage, but also found himself increasingly trapped by the financial commitments he had made. Their meetings continued throughout the winter and into spring 2019. They developed routines and patterns, finding times when Kinne could slip away from his family or his police duties. Perhaps they met when he was supposedly working late shifts or during times his wife believed he was handling police business. The deception required constant maintenance, adding emotional strain to the already complicated relationship. As with many affairs, the initial excitement eventually gave way to the reality of their situation. By spring 2019, approximately 9 months into their relationship, cracks began to appear. According to court statements, Kinne attempted to end the relationship, likely feeling the pressure of the financial obligations and the constant risk of exposure. This is where the affair took its darkest turn. When Kinne tried to break things off, Dominique allegedly threatened to tell his wife about their relationship. This threat, whether made in anger, desperation, or as a negotiating tactic, would prove fatal. For Kinne, exposure meant not just the potential end of his marriage, but public humiliation in a community where he was known as a police officer, possible financial ruin through divorce, and the destruction of his carefully constructed public image. The affair that had begun less than a year earlier had transformed from a secret source of excitement to a problem Kinne felt he couldn't escape. He felt he couldn't get out despite wanting his life back. By May 2019, their relationship had become a powder keg. Dominique, possibly feeling abandoned after becoming financially dependent on Kinne, was allegedly threatening exposure. Kinne, seeing his personal and professional life at risk, was growing increasingly desperate. The financial support that had once seemed manageable now felt like chains binding him to a relationship he wanted to escape. What neither of them could have fully understood in those tense final weeks was how fatally the power dynamics had shifted. Kinne, who had initially held power through his position and financial support, now perceived Dominique as holding power over him through her threat of exposure. And in his mind, this reversal of control became something he was unwilling to accept, something that would drive him to commit an unthinkable act that would destroy multiple lives, including his own. By spring 2019, the financial arrangements between Matthew Kinne and Dominique Clayton had become unsustainable. The car he had purchased for her, the regular rent assistance, and other financial support were creating significant strain on his police officer's salary. What had once seemed manageable now threatened his financial stability, adding practical concerns to the already complicated emotional landscape of their secret relationship. Court records revealed that Kinne's financial obligations were stretching him thin. Supporting his wife and young child, plus 2 teenage children from his previous marriage, while simultaneously funding aspects of Dominique's life, had created a financial house of cards that was beginning to collapse. Each payment to Dominique represented money diverted from his family's needs, creating a situation where his secret life was actively undermining his official one. As the financial pressure mounted, Kinne made the decision to end the relationship. According to statements made during court proceedings, he attempted to break things off with Dominique, likely hoping to contain the damage and prevent further financial bleeding. But ending an affair is rarely as simple as making a declaration, particularly when financial dependencies have been established. Dominique's response to Kinne's attempt to end their relationship would prove to be the catalyst for tragedy. Court records indicate that when faced with the prospect of losing both the relationship and the financial support she had come to rely on, she threatened to tell Kinne's wife about their affair. Whether this was a desperate attempt to save the relationship, leverage to maintain financial support, or simply an emotional reaction to rejection, the threat struck at Kinne's greatest fear: exposure. For Kinne, the prospect of his wife discovering the affair carried catastrophic implications. Beyond the personal humiliation and likely end of his marriage, there would be financial consequences through divorce proceedings, potential custody battles over his young child, and possible professional repercussions if the affair became public knowledge in the small community where he served as a police officer. The psychological pressure on Kinne intensified as he found himself trapped between 2 impossible choices: continue an unsustainable relationship that was draining him financially, or end it and face exposure with all its consequences. As May 2019 approached, the tension between them escalated. What had begun as a secret source of excitement had transformed into a source of anxiety and fear. The power dynamics had shifted dramatically. Kinne, who initially held power through his position and financial support, now perceived Dominique as holding power over him through her threat of exposure. This reversal created a dangerous psychological state. Kinne began to view Dominique not as a partner or even as a problem, but as a threat to everything he valued. His thinking narrowed to focus on elimination of the threat, rather than managing the consequences of his own choices. The man trained to protect the community was now contemplating violence against a member of that same community. The days leading up to May 19, 2019, were likely filled with mounting anxiety for Kinne. Each interaction with his wife carried the risk of discovery. Each demand from Dominique increased his sense of being trapped. Each financial transaction pushed him closer to a breaking point. The psychological pressure was building toward a decision point, a moment when Kinne would choose a course of action that would permanently alter multiple lives. What makes this period particularly tragic is that numerous off-ramps existed. Kinne could have accepted the consequences of exposure, faced divorce, and rebuilt his life. He could have sought counseling or confided in trusted friends. Instead, his thinking became increasingly distorted until he saw only one solution to his problem, a solution that would transform him from a police officer to a murderer in the span of a single night. If you're still with me, you're about to witness how quickly a person can cross the line from contemplating a terrible act to actually committing it. Before we continue with the events of May 19, 2019, the day Matthew Kinne made his fatal decision, take a moment to hit that like button if you're finding this deep dive informative. Your engagement helps others discover this channel and these important stories. I'm curious, have you ever witnessed a relationship where one person held significant power over the other, whether through their job, financial control, or threats? Share your thoughts in the comments below. These power dynamics exist all around us, sometimes with devastating consequences. As we transition to what happened on that Sunday in May, consider this. Matthew Kinne woke up that morning as a police officer, a husband, and a father. By nightfall, he would become something else entirely. A murderer who used his badge, his service weapon, and his knowledge of police procedures to commit and attempt to cover up a calculated killing. The next few minutes will reveal exactly how Officer Kinne transformed from a protector to a predator in the span of a single shift. The details that follow come directly from court records and his own confession. Sunday, May 19, 2019 began as an ordinary day in Oxford, Mississippi. Matthew Kinne reported for his shift at the Oxford Police Department, putting on the uniform that identified him as a protector of the community. But as his shift progressed, his thoughts weren't focused on protecting and serving. They were consumed by the problem Dominique Clayton represented and his decision to permanently solve it. As his shift drew to a close that evening, Kinne initiated a plan that demonstrated both premeditation and his understanding of police procedures. According to court records and his subsequent confession, he drove his marked patrol car directly to Dominique's East Oxford home. This wasn't a crime of sudden passion. It was a calculated decision executed with chilling precision. Upon arriving at Dominique's house, Kinne discovered the door was unlocked. He entered and found Dominique asleep in her bedroom. Rather than confronting her or even waking her, he made a crucial decision that revealed the calculated nature of his intentions. He left the house, moved his patrol car around the corner to avoid detection, and retrieved his duty weapon, his department-issued Glock 9mm pistol. In a detail that would later prove significant, Kinne placed a pistol before returning to the house. This unusual action suggested he may have been attempting to create confusion about the weapon used, potentially to misdirect any future investigation. Kinne then walked back into Dominique's home, approached her bedroom where she continued to sleep, unaware of the danger, and shot her once in the back of the head. The execution-style killing was quick, efficient, and demonstrated his intent not to confront or even argue, but to eliminate. With Dominique dead, Kinne immediately began covering his tracks. He drove back to the Oxford Police Department horse barn, where he had strategically left his cell phone earlier. This deliberate action created an electronic alibi. His phone would show he was at the police facility, not at the scene of a murder. The bullet he had loaded into his 9mm pistol had jammed in the weapon. Kinne removed this shell casing and disposed of it somewhere along South Lamar Boulevard as he drove away from the scene. This attempt to eliminate evidence showed his awareness of forensic techniques and his determination to avoid detection. Once he retrieved his phone from the horse barn, Kinne took another calculated step to create confusion. He sent a text message to Dominique's phone, knowing she would never respond. This action revealed Kinne's understanding of how investigators establish timelines and alibis in murder cases. What Kinne couldn't have known was that Dominique's home had security video that would capture his patrol car arriving and leaving, evidence that would later prove crucial in connecting him to the crime. His knowledge of police procedures was extensive, but not perfect. The most disturbing aspect of the murder was its cold efficiency. Kinne didn't wake Dominique for a confrontation. He didn't give her a chance to speak or defend herself. He made the decision that her life was a problem to be solved, and he executed that decision while she slept, vulnerable and unaware. Dominique's body remained undiscovered until approximately 2 p.m. that Sunday afternoon, when her 8-year-old son entered her bedroom and found his mother dead. The child's discovery set in motion the investigation that would quickly focus on Matthew Kinne. The murder of Dominique Clayton wasn't a crime of sudden passion or overwhelming emotion. It was the result of a series of deliberate choices made by a man who decided that killing was preferable to facing the consequences of his actions. Each step, driving to her house in his patrol car, leaving to move the car and retrieve his weapon, returning to shoot her while she slept, and his subsequent attempts to create confusion demonstrated planning and intent. In the span of a few hours on a Sunday evening, Matthew Kinne transformed from a police officer to a murderer. He used the tools of his profession, his patrol car, his service weapon, and his knowledge of investigations, not to protect the community, but to commit and attempt to conceal a calculated killing. The afternoon of Sunday, May 19, 2019, forever changed the life of an 8-year-old boy in Oxford, Mississippi. Around 2 p.m., Dominique Clayton's youngest son entered his mother's bedroom, likely looking for her attention or assistance. Instead, he found a scene no child should ever witness. His mother lying motionless in bed, blood soaking the pillow beneath her head from a gunshot wound to the back of her skull. In that moment, 4 children lost their mother, and a murder investigation began that would shock the entire community. The boys' discovery triggered an immediate response from local authorities. Oxford Police Department officers arrived at the scene, securing the area and beginning the process of collecting evidence. As they pieced together the circumstances of Dominique's death, a troubling possibility emerged. Information from family members and friends indicated she had been involved in a relationship with one of their own, Officer Matthew Kinne. This revelation created an immediate conflict of interest for the department. Recognizing the need for an independent investigation when one of their officers might be implicated, the Oxford Police Department made a crucial decision. They contacted the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation to take over the case. This transfer of authority demonstrated professional integrity in a difficult situation and ensured the investigation would proceed without departmental bias. That same evening, investigators conducted their first interview with Kinne. During this initial questioning, he admitted to having an affair with Dominique but denied any involvement in her death. This partial confession, acknowledging the relationship but denying the murder, was a calculated risk on Kinne's part, likely assuming the affair would eventually be discovered, but hoping to distance himself from the killing. What Kinne didn't know was that investigators were already gathering compelling evidence against him. Security video from Dominique's house captured his patrol car arriving and leaving around the time of the murder, directly contradicting his alibi. This video evidence proved to be a critical breakthrough, placing him at the scene despite his denials. Armed with this evidence and other inconsistencies in his story, Oxford police and MBI arrested Kinne the following night, Monday, May 20. During a second interview after his arrest, confronted with mounting evidence against him, Kinne confessed to the killing. The officer, who had sworn to protect the community, admitted to executing a sleeping mother of 4 with his service weapon. The investigation revealed the calculated nature of the crime. Investigators discovered that Kinne had left his cell phone at the police department horse barn when he went to Clayton's house, a deliberate attempt to create an electronic alibi. They found evidence of his text message to Dominique after her death, another attempt to establish distance from the crime. They even uncovered his disposal of the jammed D-380 shell casing along South Lamar Boulevard. Each piece of evidence painted a picture not of a crime of passion, but of a premeditated murder, carried out with knowledge of police procedures and investigation techniques. Kinne had used his position, his understanding of law enforcement, and his service weapon to commit the crime and attempt to avoid detection. The speed of the investigation, from discovery on Sunday afternoon to arrest on Monday night, demonstrated the seriousness with which authorities approached the case, even when it implicated one of their own. Within 36 hours of Dominique's body being found, the man responsible was in custody and had confessed to the crime. For the Clayton family, the swift arrest provided some measure of initial relief, but it also confirmed their worst fears. Dominique had been murdered by someone sworn to protect the community, someone who had abused his position, his authority, and their trust in the most profound way possible. In August 2019, a Lafayette County grand jury indicted Matthew Kinne for capital murder. The indictment specified that Kinne was engaged in the commission of the felony crime of burglary when he killed Dominique Clayton, elevating the charge to capital murder, a crime punishable by death in Mississippi. During his arraignment, Kinne initially pleaded not guilty, setting the stage for what would have been a high-profile trial. The Clayton family, represented by attorney Carlos Moore, made their position clear. They wanted the death penalty for the man who had murdered their loved one. For nearly 2 years, the case moved through the legal system while Kinne remained in custody. During this time, controversy erupted when a Facebook user shared a photo of Kinne standing and eating alone at what appeared to be a guard's desk in the Panola County Jail. The image raised questions about preferential treatment, and officials subsequently moved Kinne to another facility without disclosing the location to protect him from other inmates who might target a former police officer. On May 19, 2021, exactly 2 years after the murder, Matthew Kinne appeared before Judge Kent Smith in the Union County Courthouse in New Albany for a plea hearing. In a dramatic shift from his initial plea, Kinne admitted guilt to the capital murder charge. As part of a plea agreement between Kinne and prosecutors, he received a sentence of life without the possibility of parole, avoiding the death penalty the Clayton family had sought. Immediately following the sentencing, a 6-man transportation team from the Mississippi Department of Corrections took Kinne to the Central Mississippi Correctional Facility in Rankin County for processing before his assignment to a permanent facility to serve his life sentence. The Clayton family's reaction was one of measured acceptance. Reggie Clayton, speaking for the family, stated, "We wanted the death penalty, but we will settle for life without parole. Now the healing process can begin." This sentiment captured their desire for the harshest possible punishment while acknowledging the closure the plea agreement provided. 3rd District Attorney Ben Creekmore explained the prosecution's perspective. "Nothing is ever easy when you're talking about a death penalty case. This plea accomplished the family's wishes without having to go through the procedure of a trial. I appreciate the family trusting us to get to this point." Kinne's attorney, Anthony Faries, chose not to make a statement during the hearing to avoid aggravating the pain the victim's family was already feeling. He later characterized the plea as a practical decision, noting that in the climate of George Floyd and police misconduct, a jury very well could have convicted him and sentenced him to death. The murder of Dominique Clayton offers several crucial lessons about relationships, power dynamics, and community trust. First, it highlights the dangerous imbalance that exists when one partner holds significant authority over another. As a police officer, Kinne possessed not just physical power but institutional authority that created an inherent imbalance in their relationship. Perhaps most heartbreaking are the consequences for innocent children. Dominique's 4 children lost their mother to violence, with her youngest son experiencing the additional trauma of discovering her body. Meanwhile, Kinne's 3 children, 2 teenagers from his first marriage and a 2-year-old from his second, must grow up with the knowledge of their father's crime. 7 children's lives were forever altered by one man's decision to solve his problems through violence. This case also highlights how the consequences of violence extend far beyond the immediate victim. Dominique's extended family, Kinne's former wives and children, the Oxford Police Department, and the broader community all continue to feel the ripple effects of this crime. Violence is never contained to just the perpetrator and victim. It tears through the fabric of entire communities. The story of Dominique Clayton and Matthew Kinne reminds us that the line between protector and predator can be crossed in a single moment of fatal decision. A police officer sworn to serve and protect chose instead to use his position, his weapon, and his knowledge to commit the ultimate betrayal of trust. If this case has impacted you, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Has this story changed how you think about power dynamics in relationships or trust in authority figures? Your perspective adds valuable dimension to these difficult conversations. Before you go, hit that subscribe button and notification bell to join our Crazy Dark Files community. Each week we examine cases that challenge our understanding of human behavior and the systems designed to protect us. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light.